Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria presented his budget proposal to the City Council today. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says it was the first of many public hearings.
Let me be clear from the outset, this is a difficult budget year.
Gloria said he received a message from voters last November when a narrow majority rejected a sales tax increase to fund the city government. That message, live within your means. His proposed budget closes a structural deficit with a mix of new revenues like higher parking rates and service reductions like closing libraries on Sundays and Mondays.
These were not easy decisions to make, and I know that their impacts will be felt by every San Diegan. But we work to make sure that these do not fall hardest on those who rely on city services the most.
Several members of the public spoke in support of the library department and funding for arts and culture organizations, which the budget would cut by about $1.5 million. And a representative of the largest union of city employees argued that despite the cuts, the budget still protects some higher paid management positions.
Are we really cutting libraries and park and rec hours and programs and many of the nuisance abatement inspectors and development services without looking at their management, which has grown significantly in recent years? Why do we need so many managers when there is so much less to manage?
The City Council will hold a week-long series of hearings on the budget starting May 5th. Gloria is set to release a revised budget proposal by May 14th. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria's draft city budget proposes closing all libraries 2 days a week. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas spoke to a mother about what that would mean for her kids.
Claudia Martinez drives from National City to the Logan Heights Library nearly every day. Her kids can get one-on-one help with homework there from Monday through Thursday.
Ellos hacen su tarea aquí porque específicamente mi niño tiene una IP y no es suficiente la ayuda que le dan en la escuela. Entonces aquí ha avanzado muchísimo más que lo que le dan en la escuela.
Mayor Gloria's draft budget calls for closing all city libraries on Sundays and Mondays. That would mean one less day of homework help at the Logan Heights branch.
Los maestros específicamente de aquí tienen como un clic con los niños, como un ángel se puede decir, y que los niños quieren hacer tarea. Entonces, en casa no quieren hacer tarea y aquí sí.
Closing all libraries on Sundays and Mondays is expected to save about $8 million. Patrick Stewart is CEO of the Library Foundation SD. The organization advocates for the library.
We understand that cuts need to be made. We understand that every department needs to, pull its own weight. But what our concern is going forward is that we're allowing a new baseline standard of deficiency when it comes to library operating hours.
The city closed all libraries during the pandemic. They slowly reopened over the next few years. In 2023, 14 of the city's 37 libraries added Sunday hours back. Stewart says one piece of good news is that the proposed budget doesn't call for cuts to library programming or materials. Still, he says the city needs to find a way to pay for all branches to be open 7 days a week. That could include trash collection fees, hotel tax revenue, or new ballot measures.
We need to find the solution that is going to really support the city's ability to deliver on its services.
The city says the average daily patron count across all libraries is 4,000 on Sundays and 14,000 on Mondays. City spokesperson Caleb Olson said closing for 2 consecutive days helps save money. That's because employees get overtime pay if they don't get 2 days off in a row. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, tonight we're dropping down to the upper 50s. The clouds are sticking around. And if you notice some low clouds and some fog, especially along the coast this morning, we're going to have more of that really the rest of the week, and it'll even move a little bit further inland. I'll break all of that down coming up.
Pope Francis, the first non-European pontiff in nearly 1,300 years, died on Easter Monday. He was 88 years old. His death follows an extended hospital stay just a few weeks ago. Lee Waldman brings us the latest.
Dear brothers and sisters, with deep sorrow, I must announce the death of our Holy Father, Francis.
Hours after giving the Easter blessing in front of thousands of Catholics in St. Peter's Square,
Buona Pasqua.
Pope Francis died at his residence at 88 years old. In his final message, the Holy Father called for an end to wars in Gaza, Ukraine, and Sudan. His death now sparks 9 days of mourning for Catholics and an outpouring of love from across the globe.
I remember when he called me when my mom died. I remember when he called me during COVID to find out how God's people here in New York were doing.
Pope Francis's papacy was unprecedented in many ways by being more inclusive, supporting same-sex civil union.
Pope of the marginalized, underprivileged. He's also what I'm going to call a reformer pope, because he made a lot of changes to the way the Vatican is run, the way the church is run.
He was a good man, loved the way he...
And each other, and not be against each other, and can disagree but could still love each other. And I think that was good, that he brought that to the table.
Pope Francis's death comes weeks after he was released from the hospital after battling a life-threatening case of pneumonia in both lungs. Lee Waldman, KPBS News.
And as we said earlier, Pope Francis was the first non-European head of the Roman Catholic Church in more than a millennium. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer looked at how his passing was impacting some of his faithful in San Diego.
On a day of great mourning for the Catholic Church, Father Joe's villages in downtown San Diego came together and did what Pope Francis often preached, helping those on the margins of society.
His passing, this is bittersweet for us as Catholics, bittersweet in the sense that we mourn the loss of him, and yet we know that he's exactly where he wants to be.
They held a special Easter celebration, which offered joy and a chance to connect with others, despite the news.
He worked for the marginalized. One of the first things he did when he arrived at the Vatican, when he was elected Pope in 2013, was to make sure that the homeless around the Vatican, that they were caring for the homeless around the Vatican. And that's what we do here each and every single day. So
I feel the Pope and Father Joe right here. Their spirits are here, their compassion, their caring for people.
Kathy McKinley is part of the Ladies Guild, who volunteered at the event. She's a lifelong Catholic and has been a volunteer with Father Joe's Villages for 20 years. McKinley feels blessed to have had Pope Francis lead the church as long as he did, and noted that he died the day after celebrating Easter.
I guess grateful for the timing, because what better day after the resurrection.
A few miles away at St. Mary Magdalene Church, Roman Catholic Diocese of San Diego's Auxiliary Bishop, Michael Prom, says the Pope's death is a great sadness for him and Catholics around the world.
Pope Francis, our Holy Father, had appointed me to become an auxiliary bishop for the Diocese of San Diego. So it's such a sentimental for me, learning that he had passed away.
Voiceless lives on.
And then he talked about or cared about the prisoners, who he would go there and wash the feet of on Holy Thursday. He mindful of the margins, like the immigrants, those people who are in need of welcoming.
Pope Francis also appointed San Diego's first ever cardinal, Robert McElroy, who was recently appointed Archbishop of Washington, D.C. McElroy will be part of the conclave to elect a new pope in the coming weeks. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Pope Francis passes away at age 88, leaving behind a legacy of change and a divided Catholic Church. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The National Weather Service hit pause on its translated weather alerts, meaning all weather notifications will only be issued in English until further notice. Maribel Gonzalez spoke with experts who say for many, this change could mean the difference between life and death.
Experts point to the fact that nearly 68 million people in the U.S. speak a language other than English at home, including 42 million Spanish speakers. This is according to 2019 census data. And without this service, that population could be in danger when disaster strikes.
I don't think anyone really prepared for it to be this high of water.
September 2024, Hurricane Helene hit western North Carolina, causing power outages, collapsed roads, and catastrophic flooding.
Him and me are both from Florida, so we've seen a lot of hurricanes, but I've never seen anything like this.
Despite the National Weather Service issuing alerts, the disaster claimed the lives of 107 people in the state.
There was a big article just a few months before the floods there that rated Asheville one of the safest places to live in the United States from a climate change point of view. And then they suffered massive, devastating, costly floods that they're still cleaning up from.
Without weather warnings, experts say the death toll could have been higher.
Weather alerts save lives. I mean, there's no question about that. If we know a hurricane is coming, if we know it, lives would be at peril.
But now the National Weather Service is only putting out alerts in English. The agency declined an interview, but sent a statement saying they paused the translation service, quote, due to a contract lapse.
We got a tornado!
It comes as experts warn of more extreme weather due to climate change.
The whole planet is affected, and that means no place is really exempt.
Arguing that access to weather alerts is vital.
It doesn't have to be an extreme event to be a matter of public health and safety.
Translated text on the National Weather Service website has now been disabled. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Maribel Gonzalez.
Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin is scheduled to visit San Diego tomorrow, and ahead of his visit, San Diego Representative Mike Levin is calling on the Trump administration to deploy the $653 million that have been secured in federal funding to address the cross-border sewage pollution and not cut EPA funding.
We can't allow Administrator Zeldin or anyone in the administration to talk about solving this crisis while proposing cuts to the very agencies responsible for the solution. We've heard from House Republicans. We've heard from DOGE, which I call destruction of government by Elon. They're already targeting funding for the EPA. They're targeting funding for the IBWC. And get this, part of the funding that they're targeting is O&M, operations and maintenance funding. That same funding that led to this mess in the first place.
Levin says he plans to explain to Zeldin tomorrow how cutting EPA operations and maintenance funding will undermine any investment in cross-border sewage infrastructure. Tomorrow is Earth Day, and many communities will host conservation events to mark the day. One nonprofit is hoping to make the environment cleaner year-round. It's called the Buy Nothing Project. And Jen Sullivan explains how it works and why it could save you money.
Of tons of waste end up in landfills every year in the U.S., according to the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA estimates Americans throw out about 5 pounds of trash every day, and that doesn't even include the garbage that ends up in our oceans.
We found that there were a lot of plastics washing ashore with every single high tide.
Liesl Clark was living in Bainbridge Island, Washington, when she noticed just how much trash was ending up on their shores and wanted to do something about it. In 2013, she and her friend Rebecca Rockefeller launched a local Facebook group where neighbors could reuse and share items.
Post here and say what you're going to the store to buy and see if your neighbor might have it.
It's called the Buy Nothing Project. Clark says it's grown to 12 million users in communities all over the world. Here's how it works. Communities create a private Buy Nothing Facebook group just for people who live in that area. That's where you can post items you no longer need, blenders, kids' rocking chairs, clothes, and see if one of your neighbors wants it, like this person who's giving away picture frames. If you're interested, you comment on the post and coordinate the exchange. Those items don't end up in the trash, and it helps a neighbor save money.
There is a power in togetherness and sharing.
You can also ask neighbors for items you're looking for, like this parent who wants a bike bike for her daughter. Multiple neighbors responding, offering their old bikes.
They're connecting with their neighbors. They come for the stuff. They stay for the community.
That community connection seen through posts like this one. A parent giving away this stroller that she says she received and enjoyed from this group and now wants to pay it forward. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
They were facing jail time, but thanks to a diversion program training shelter dogs, select men have another chance at life. Ivan Rodriguez explains how this program is helping men and man's best friend.
Down. A crucial part to any new relationship is trust.
Good girl. They could be in defense mode all day just how we could, but they giving us the opportunity to try to know us, so we got to get the opportunity to try to know them.
Joaquin Hawley is currently on probation. Like every other man in the Beyond the Bars program, his ability to successfully complete it could alter his life's path.
It was a part of the punishment. So to stay out of jail, come to this program.
Susan Jacobs Meadows has been running K9 cellmates for more than a decade, pairing dogs rescued from shelters with inmates they believe can change.
They come here, they work with rescue dogs in a group training environment. They sit in very focused curriculum. They're here 4 half-days a week during phase 1 of this program, which is structured similarly to an accountability court.
Since 2021, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office has partnered with K9 cellmates. Part of their mission is identifying men who are repeat felony offenders.
This is their last chance. They have repeatedly had contact with the criminal justice system. They have repeatedly failed. And but for this last opportunity, this last chance, they're looking at an incredibly lengthy prison sentence.
The men will learn about conflict resolution, effective communication, and staying out of jail 101, to name a few.
I think that's our biggest problem, lack of communication, not understanding each other. Down, boy. Good boy.
Good clicker timing.
For the men, the stakes are high. For the dogs, it hopefully means finding a new home. Somehow, through this process and the magic dogs have, similarities start to appear.
When you go see these dogs in those shelters, if you ever been incarcerated, they're going to put you right back in that same state of mind, so you can see yourself in them dogs.
A bond that over time helps both man and dog believe life can be different. Although absolute success years down the road can be hard to quantify, the signs are clear.
When they make mistakes, if the magnitude of the mistakes continues to be less significant, that's progress. That's success.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Well, we're going to be dealing with some low clouds and fog at night and in the morning, starting off early this week along the coast. You might have noticed it this morning, but then it's going to move a little bit farther inland as we go throughout the week. And then otherwise, high clouds, those are sticking around for a lot of us as well. Temperature-wise, a little bit of a cooling trend throughout the week for some of us. So let's break all of it down, starting with what to expect for tonight. We're in the low 50s in Oceanside, upper 50s in San Diego, upper 40s there for Mount Laguna, and especially along the coast, we have the clouds, just like we talked about. Now, as we head into tomorrow, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, right? Further inland, we have more sunshine, the clouds kind of sticking around along the coast. We're in the mid-60s in Oceanside and San Diego, 70s as we move a little bit further inland. Then 91 is our high up at Borrego Springs. Let's talk about the next 5 days, the rest of the week. We're going to have a mix of clouds and sunshine. The cloudiest day by far is going to be Thursday. Now, I mentioned a little bit of a cooling trend, not really along the coast. We stay relatively consistent with temperatures ranging from mid-60s, getting into the upper 60s by Wednesday, but 65, 66, 67, not too much difference from day to day. As we move further inland, here's where we get a little bit more of that cooling trend. We start in the low 70s, stay that way Tuesday, Wednesday, then we start to drop down and we end up into the mid-60s by the time we get to the weekend. And you'll notice we kind of have a mix of some of the clouds, especially later into the week and into the weekend. As we move into our mountain 5-day outlook, a little bit of that cooling trend as well. We start in the upper 50s, then we start to drop down, and by the time we get to Friday, Saturday, we're in the low 50s. Some days a little bit cloudier than others, but overall, just kind of mild conditions, not too much to talk about overall. Into our desert 5-day outlook, we start in the 90s, we drop down to the 80s and even the 70s by the time we get to your Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
Prom season is right around the corner, and if you're dress shopping, be prepared to pay a bit more this year. A South Bay store owner told our media partner KGTV she's seeing fewer customers than usual this year. The recent downturn in the economy has more customers hesitant to shop. But the manager of Divas Formal and Bridal Wear at the Chula Vista Mall says they have plenty of dresses on sale. There's also a nonprofit organization that can help.
We notice like clients are not purchasing as much. They're feeling kind of like scared to like spend their money.
It is hard right now with the economy, and I'm so glad that we can be a resource.
The nonprofit Princess Project at Mission Valley Mall offers dresses and accessories to high schoolers for free. To learn more, you can visit princessprojectsd.org. The Trump administration has frozen federal funding to some programs that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas tells us about upgrades to San Diego City College's Planetarium made possible by federal funding for Latino students.
Since 2014, San Diego City College students have had astronomy classes in a planetarium.
I think I really like the experience in the planetarium. I would say it's the part of my day that I look forward to on my Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Professors look forward to it too.
Having taught astronomy in a planetarium and for many, many years without one beforehand, I can't imagine going back to not having a planetarium anymore.
Lisa Will is a physics and astronomy professor. She taught the first astronomy class to use the college's planetarium in spring 2014.
What I remember the most from that day was a student said, it's good to see City College finally getting what it deserves. And I think what that student really meant is it's good to see the City College students finally get what they deserve. They deserve the best equipment. They deserve a room that excites them, that makes them want to come to class.
More than a decade later, it's no longer the best equipment.
One of the projectors takes about 25 minutes to warm up as opposed to the other projector, which is still working fine, but they don't manufacture these projectors anymore, and you want to have matching projectors in a planetarium system. And so it's still working, but every time I boot it up, I'm kind of worried that this will be the day that it doesn't.
Will knows just how good the planetarium could be. She's also the Fleet Science Center's resident astronomer. There, she can easily access data from agencies around the world, like NASA and the European Space Agency. New software would also allow her to show constellations from other cultures, like the Kumeyaay.
There are beautiful stories to tell across different cultures, and when I show them the constellations, I try to include that. But the constellations that we're showing have the 88 stories that basically are connected to the constellations that professional astronomers use.
That kind of cultural relevance is something City College has been working to incorporate throughout its classes. Administrators realized the outdated software limited those efforts. So they got permission from the U.S. Department of Education to spend some grant funding focused on Latino and low-income students in STEM on the planetarium. School leaders say improving the planetarium aligns with the mission to make science more accessible.
Well, the reality is that a lot of our students doesn't have the ability to go into the field, or to do field trips ever since the K-12 system, right? So not all of the schools had the same access to field trips of hands-on science education. So here at the City College, we are really lucky that our faculty and our dean envisioned to have a space that could provide hands-on learning without leaving campus.
In February, the San Diego Community College District's Board of Trustees voted to spend more than $400,000 from that federal grant on the planetarium. The agenda item said they should spend the funds as soon as possible, since federal funds supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives could be frozen. Diaz Carrasco says the funding for the upgrades is secure.
For our particular grant, again, it's meant to support low-income and Hispanic or Latino students, and we haven't received any legislative action that says that that mission is going to change. So, we have been instructed to continue the work as we have been doing it.
Will says it's important for federal funding to support public resources like the planetarium.
I think sometimes the general public hears of these data sets or these missions and they don't feel a connection to them, but they are owed the right to witness them, they're owed the right to see that data because they paid for it and it's theirs.
The fifth and final year of the grant begins in October.
Diaz-Carrasco says she doesn't expect that funding to be pulled as long as they continue to follow the parameters approved in 2021. It's helped City College expand STEM tutoring, counseling services, faculty development, and research opportunities for students.
And they are transferring to four-year institutions. They are being recognized in national conferences, so we wanted to continue to do that type of work regardless of who funds it.
The new planetarium equipment is expected to be installed in the fall. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Finding products you love at low prices on Shein and Temu may be harder to come by. NPR's Morning Edition discusses price hikes for the online retailers. And on KPBS Midday Edition, local environmental groups are bracing for executive orders from President Trump that could dramatically impact their funding. As always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.